Welcome to Codex History of Video Games. My name's Tyler Osby.
And I'm Mike Coletta.
And this week, we are done with the Ultimate History of Video Games Volume 2, and we're moving on to just some other stuff that we felt like doing over the course of reading this book. We've got a few things lined up now, so Mike is going to tell us all about Tamagotchis this week.
Yeah, so this has been like in our drafts for a while, and I started this like probably a month ago and didn't really finish it, and I was like, you know what? We got to give virtual pets their due. So I'm calling this 1997 Virtual Pet Fever, because that's what it was.
Yeah, it really was. I remember.
Do you remember? I remember this. This was a nuts time to be a child, and everyone had little plastic beeping toys on their backpacks.
There was like a larger sort of meta thing going on, because this was right around the time of Pokemon as well. 98 is like when Pokemon came, took over the US. And so like there was this whole craze of taking care of small like non-animals or like monsters, or sometimes animals in the case of some types of Tamagotchis, but like taking care of these animals. It was like a whole craze, and like Beanie Babies were right in there too. I think that sort of is kind of tangentially attached as well.
Yeah, this is really like the late 90s were really just a time for these weird fads to come in and out in children's toys.
Yeah.
Because Pokemon cards, well, I would argue now is not really a fad, but it was a fad. It felt that way when it came out as a kid.
Yeah, which Pokemon in general was just huge. I mean, it still is, but it used to be too.
So I'm going to briefly start out here. I say briefly, but really this is like a third of the episode. The history of what's going on with Tamagotchi specifically, because those are kind of the first. So we're going to go from there. Okay, so the story of pocket virtual pets in this style, because there had been pocket like virtual pet games before, but the pocket kind that we now know as Tamagotchis and Giga Pets starts in Toshima City, which is a ward of northwest Tokyo, and Akihiro Yokoi, president of Wiz Company Limited, thought of the idea while watching an advertisement where a kid couldn't bring his pet turtle on vacation. And he thought, well, why not just take a virtual pet instead?
That's so sad that he wasn't able to bring his turtle on vacation.
Well, here's the thing. A Redditor has scoured the internet for commercials from the early 90s trying to find this specific turtle can't go on vacation commercial, and they can't find it. So some people think it just doesn't exist. This is all made up.
Oh. Or maybe it was like a story they read in a book somewhere and they got confused for a commercial, or like just one of those things, you know?
Yeah, or they just, maybe what really happened is Akihiro Yokoi tried to take his pet turtle on vacation.
Maybe.
And he was embarrassed, so he made it a commercial instead.
Or he didn't let his kid take his pet turtle on vacation. He felt bad for being a bad dad. I don't think having to leave your turtle makes you a bad parent, but as long as you got somebody to take care of it.
Yeah, you got to have a turtle sitter.
Yeah.
That's fine. So Wiz Company is a company with 42 employees, most of them young, and they designed and pitched toy concepts to larger companies. That's what they did. And Yokoi pitched his idea of a watch-style toy on a wristband called a Tamagotchi to Aki Maita, a marketing rep at Bandai. And Tamagotchi, by the way, is a combination of tamago, which means egg, and uochi, which means watch. I think I'm saying that word correctly. It's UOTCHI. Hopefully Matt in Japan can help me out with that. Even though eventually the wristband would just be replaced by a keychain, the name still stuck. It was still called Tamagotchi. And 1996, 1997 was kind of the prime time for this type of toy too. While handhelds in the past had been very expensive, this was the time parts drastically dropped in price. So Bandai could manufacture a little electronic toy like this and sell it for $15 to $17, which is what they did.
What's that with inflation now? Well, with inflation last year, it's like $100,000 now.
Yeah.
But, no, this is probably like $30 or $40 now. I don't know. I'm going to get an inflation
Well, that's
calculator.
Actually kind of a good pricing too, because Tamagotchis now sell for like $40.
Yeah, so it sounds like they went up with inflation there.
Yeah, like new Tamagotchis. We're going to get to that at the end of the episode. So on top of the virtual pet genre had proven itself popular with the 1995 release of PF Magic's game Pets, which is a 1995 game, like video game. And Pets sold over 1.5 million copies worldwide. So you have this video game, Pets, and now you have this virtual pet on a keychain. And honestly, Bandai was kind of skeptical of the toy at first, but it proved really well, specifically with Japanese teenage girls in focus groups. Those focus groups told the truth. Tamagotchi launched in Japan in November 1996, and in less than 6 months, Bandai had sold over 5 million Tamagotchis in Japan.
Wow, that is a lot of Tamagotchis. Also, for inflation, $17 in 1996 is $31.15 in 2022. So there you go. So it sounds like they're going up even further than inflation, while not really changing the technology that much. I've seen what the Tamagotchis look like these days. They're not that much cooler.
Yeah, they just have fancier screens.
Yeah.
That's all that really is. Okay, so here's a fun little tidbit from the Smithsonian Magazine article I used. Even though after Bandai had success in Japan, Bandai announced that it would gift the Tamagotchi to anyone who owned 1,000 shares of its stock. And then the price of their stock leapt up by 60 yen the next day. So they're kind of using Tamagotchis to make their stock go up a little bit. That was kind of funny.
That's strange. How much was 1,000 shares of Bandai stock? I wonder. Was it worth? Oh, why wouldn't you just buy a Tamagotchi if you wanted one?
I don't know. You should just buy a Tamagotchi, right? They're kind of playing. Isn't this like insider trading? I was confused by this. You're altering the price of your stock intentionally.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the laws around that kind of stuff.
This is why the stock market confuses me. Okay, so Bandai, I should mention, had been largely unsuccessful in the American toy market until getting into the Power Rangers in 1983. When they got the license to Power Rangers, that's when Bandai got put on the map.
I had a bunch of Bandai Power Rangers toys as a kid.
Oh, yeah, me too. And we have a huge opportunity here for Bandai to jump into the American market with Tamagotchi. And there's an article from the New York Times just to kind of tell you about the obsession of Tamagotchi in Japan before it comes to the US. This New York Times article is called "The Tamagotchi Toy Life Form Invades the US." And it talks about a 35-year-old shopkeeper in Japan who held a small funeral for her Tamagotchi before hitting the reset button. And instead of incense, she lit a cigarette. And I just thought that was funny.
That's very 90s.
People are getting very into their Tamagotchi pets. And so now they're coming to the US and people can see what's about to happen. So the Tamagotchi came to the US on May 1st, 1997, and was an instant hit. The San Francisco location of FAO Schwarz sold out its entire stock of 3,000 by 3 o'clock p.m. that day. In New York, the flagship FAO Schwarz store, made famous by the movie Big and the giant piano scene, sold its initial 10,000 Tamagotchis by noon the next day on May 2nd.
Dang.
Yeah. So they sold 10,000 Tamagotchis in a day.
The Tickle Me Elmo of its day. Actually,
Really
it might have been of the same day. When was Tickle Me Elmo?
Very close to here. Furby is going to be 1998. I know that. So was Tickle Me Elmo before or after Furby?
I think it was before. Tickle Me Elmo. 1996 is what comes up when I Google it. Yeah, 1996 was the Tickle Me Elmo craze. See, people want to take care of things. Furbies is the next evolution in Tamagotchi technology.
Maybe it's just people's natural nurturing nature. That's fun to say. Nurturing nature. Okay. Tamagotchi achieved world domination very fast. They sold more than 70 million units by September 1997 across Japan, China, Europe, and the United States. Yokoi and Maita were awarded the satirical Ig Nobel Prize that year. Fun fact, the Ig Nobel Prize has been awarded since 1991. The Ig stands for ignoble, the opposite of noble. The award is satirical, but it's also important because it wasn't to make you think about why these awards are giving out. So Yokoi and Maita won the Ig Nobel Prize for turning millions of work hours into lost time taking care of virtual pets. So let's get into what a Tamagotchi is. Tamagotchis are small electronic devices with a very basic digital screen. Think like a graphing calculator screen.
Not even that good. Just real terrible screens.
Oh, that is true. Way less pixels than a graphing calculator.
Yeah.
But the newer ones are more modern. They have color screens and stuff. And you take care of a virtual animal. And you feed the animal, you play with it, you clean up its poop, you discipline it, all the essentials. The disciplining part always got weird to me.
Yeah, that's a little weird.
It was weird. Okay. But there are 3 small buttons on the bottom of these usually. Sometimes there's 4, depending on the brand you have. And you would use those buttons to interact with your pet. And usually there were mini games involved as well. And the mini games would involve just very simple things. For example, on the Godzilla one I have, I'll talk about it later, you could shoot these fireballs that come at you with your fireballs. But it was very much two controls to use this. What's important about Tamagotchis, though, and what really made them like a cultural phenomenon, is that you take care of these pets in real time. Older Tamagotchis, if you wanted to pause the game, you'd have to go to the clock screen and just leave the game there. And they added a pause button later, but some people didn't really know about the pause with the clock feature. And so if you neglected your Tamagotchi, it would die. And when I say die, dying is a strong word, because Japanese Tamagotchis would die. They'd show like a gravestone. American Tamagotchis would show the alien getting picked up into a spaceship and returning to its home planet, because Tamagotchis were aliens.
Like it got taken away from you, like you didn't take care of it, so now we're sending it back.
Yeah, I look at it as like the astronomical equivalent of heading to a farm upstate. You know,
yeah, okay,
like
sure.
Like your alien went to live on a planet far away, didn't die, you know, that kind of thing. This posed the problem of FOMO, though, like the fear of missing out you would get, because you actually had to consistently look at your digital pet like all the time to make sure it was safe if you wanted it to live. And this actually was a real big problem in like schools and at home. Like kids were neglecting everything to make sure their virtual pet was alive. And in the 90s, experts were kind of torn on this. There's two different quotes from that Smithsonian Magazine article, and I'm going to read them both here right now, about like how kids are interacting with these virtual pet toys and how it works with their psychology, or at least how they thought it worked with their psychology in the 90s. So here we go. The toy creates a sense of loss and a mourning process, Andrew Cohen, a psychologist at the Dalton School in Manhattan, told the New York Times in 1997. Kids want to nurture and take care of pets. It gives them a feeling of empowerment and self-importance. But here, the consequences are too high. It's out of control. But to Kocerek, there's no reason that play can't include elements of grief, loss, or complicated emotions. Children experience a range of human emotions, Kocerek points out. I think sometimes we forget that they're people, and they're just not simple and happy all the time. They actually have complex emotional lives, just like everyone else, end quote. So you have the psychologist, Andrew Cohen, being like, this is going to ruin our children. And then you have Kocerek being like, well, I mean, they need to experience grief and loss sometime. So experts didn't really know at the time what to do about this. And is it ethically to put this on kids? I don't know. I can't answer that question. Who's to say? But it was definitely a problem in the late 90s. And I know it was a problem because I was one of those kids that was like constantly checking on my Giga Pet all the time to make sure it didn't die. I think the longest I had it live was like a day too. I couldn't keep it alive longer because I'd forget. You know, you got Legos to.
What was the margin for error there? Like how long did it take before they died?
I think it's like an hour or so. It would die. Yeah.
No. Really?
Because it could get sick from not eating too, or if you didn't clean it. I think mine died a lot.
I thought it was like days.
I messed up cleaning its poop a lot. I forgot to clean its poop, and then it would die its own feces. You know, really a terrible way to go.
It really is.
I had classmates though that had like 12 Tamagotchis all on a keychain attached to their backpack. And so their backpacks were just like constantly beeping around the schools.
Yeah.
And I remember them like getting banned in schools, which is funny because now cell phones are kind of the exact same thing. You know, yeah, you can use them to call people and stuff. And that's really what they're meant for. But they're just constantly beeping and going off in schools all the time. Yeah. At one point, the Tamagotchis were banned in schools, but with the success of this brand came knockoffs, right? We're going to have off-brand
I had
stuff.
Several.
Me too. And this is where things get exciting because I would say there's a bunch of competitors this time, but the one that really stands out to me and the one we're going to talk about on this podcast because I owned this was Giga Pets by Tiger Electronics. And I'm a little biased because Giga Pets are what I have. Giga Pet is what I'm holding in my hand right now. I'm holding my original floppy frog Giga Pet.
Wow.
Yeah. Did you keep your Giga Pet? You said Vintage. You had one, Tyler.
I had a purple, like a see-through purple, you know, that classic 90s see-through purple plastic stuff.
Oh, yeah. This is see-through green right now. That's what the floppy frog is.
Mine was a dog. It was Giga Pet, and it was a dog, and it had like a couple of different buttons. I don't know. I played with it for a little while. I think I gave it up pretty quickly, though.
Me too. I don't think this was a very long part of my life. I remember it being that way, but I bet you it was like 2 weeks. And I gave up.
Well, 2 weeks when you're 8 years old is a long time.
Yeah, it really is. So let's do a little history on the Giga Pet. Are you ready for it, Tyler?
Yes, I am.
So Giga Pets were originally called V Pets. That's just V-Pets. And they were called that because they were invented by a Chicago toy inventing firm called REHCO LLC. I'm going to call it RoccoW. I think it's supposed to be like the abbreviation REHCO, but RoccoW is just easier to say. Now, it's important to note that RoccoW invented the V-Pets in 1995, a whole 2 years before the fever that hit the US that was Tamagotchi came out.
I bet they feel like they got upstaged big time. They're like, we invented this, and then somebody else brought it along.
Yeah, when you think about it, it's like parallel inventing because, like I said about that Pets game that came out in 95, this is not, that was so well known that if you were a toy inventor and you keep track of what's happening in the toy industry at the time, in the video game industry, this would be kind of a short leap to get to virtual pets, is my whole thought. So Tamagotchi was released in Japan in 1996 and then moved to North America in 1997. And then the V-Pets were renamed Giga Pets after RoccoW sold the license to Tiger Electronics. And they were not that far behind hitting US shelves. And they actually had two great things going for them compared to Tamagotchi. The first was availability. Tamagotchi sold out pretty much instantly in the US when the craze hit, and Bandai could not restock shelves fast enough. Meanwhile, Tiger Electronics had so many Gigapets to sell, they were always in stock.
That's probably why I had one, was because I probably wanted a real Tamagotchi and they just were not at the store. And they might have been cheaper too.
That's what I was getting to. That's the second thing. And that is why I had a Gigapet instead of a Tamagotchi. They were cheaper. Tamagotchi's suggested retail price in the US was somewhere between $15 and $20 depending on the store. Gigapets started at $10. So in the eyes
Seems like a pretty good deal.
Yeah, the parents in the 90s, including my own, and it sounds like Tyler's, $10 didn't seem too bad, which is why I'm still chilling with Floppy Frog today, just hanging out here with me. I should also mention, I don't have batteries in these anymore because I now find them super annoying. Like, they constantly beep and are very demanding. I think this is a phase that I stopped playing because I found the noises so annoying.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
So Gigapets did branch out away from the Tamagotchi formula into their own kind of thing. They had two different groups of toys after the original Gigapets, because the first Gigapets were like 3 animals, and then they kept doing sets of 3 different animals after this. I want to say the Floppy Frog one is like the 3rd or 4th generation of Gigapets, but they also had Giga Fighters and Gigapets Plus. Giga Fighters were marketed towards boys and had famous movie and TV characters at the time, and video game characters too. They had like Men in Black, Mortal Kombat, WCW, NWO, Batman and Robin. And you would train your fighter and then connect with your friend to battle, a la
that
Pokemon.
Sounds cool.
Very Pokemon-y, right? Like,
yeah.
It feels that way. So I think they're kind of taking license from that as well. Gigapets Plus were just single unit Gigapets that had multiple pets on a single toy. And they all had themes like Giga Farm and Giga Circus. So the farm one would allow you to raise multiple animals at the same time, and they would all be farm themed, like horses and sheep and stuff like that.
That's cool. I want one that did more than one at a time. That sounds like fun.
That does sound like fun. And I know you talked about nano pets.
Yeah.
Before recording, and I think that was another, like, that might have been an off-brand, another brand too that had like 20-in-1s.
Yeah, it was just an off-brand. It was probably cheaper, and I think it had like 20 different pets you could choose from. You still only do one at a time, but there's like a bunch of different, and I imagine they were all the same. They were just different looking clumps of pixels on the screen instead of, you could have a dog and a cat and a frog and a bird probably, but it was all the same.
Yeah, and I think there's just so many. That's what I kind of found out while doing this, is there's just so many different Gigapets. Like, if I was going to sit here and list all the Gigapets, which I never would do, or Tamagotchi pets or whatever, like the models and the characters, we'd be here for 3 hours. There's no way I'm doing that.
I think they were infinite, basically, because like they were so cheap and easy, and like the concept is so easy that anybody or any company could just throw something like this together pretty easily and probably have it sell okay, at least in the time to like chase the trend,
Oh yeah, we're going to talk about licensed ones in a bit too, because so many different Gigapets were made and Tamagotchis were made based on other properties like movies and TV and stuff. Tamagotchi also had iterations too, like they actually introduced the concept of Tamagotchi marriage and offspring. And this is kind of cool because you would connect your Tamagotchi wirelessly with other players, like you'd tap them together. And then the two would become friends. Your Tamagotchis would become friends. And then they would fall in love. And then the female Tamagotchi would have eggs. And each player that tapped their Tamagotchis together would get an egg. And then once that egg hatches, the parent would just leave and you'd have the next generation.
Oh,
like you're kind of like passing the torch on to the next Tamagotchi generation on your toy, which I think is kind of fun. And you could actually technically keep this going too. If you took care of it long and well enough, you could just have multiple generations of Tamagotchis go through your phone. Or not your phone, your Tamagotchi egg thing, I guess. So I say phone because that's clearly where this is going. So it's worth mentioning that every brand, whether Tamagotchi or Giga Pet, had so many tie-ins to it, like movie, video game, TV tie-ins. The other Tamagotchi I have, which I don't even know if this is a Tamagotchi or not, I'm holding it right now. It's shaped like an egg, and it's Godzilla themed.
Nice.
But when I say Godzilla, I mean the 1998 motion picture starring Matthew Broderick, Godzilla. It's not like the old school TV like movies and stuff. It's cool, but it's also super annoying, like Flappy Frog with just the beeps and boops. And I have long taken the batteries out of these because I also don't want them to corrode. You know, I think technically if I put the batteries in them, I think they'd still work because I feel like I've taken pretty decent care of them over the years. But I also just don't even want to turn them on because, I think as a child, I liked virtual pet games and it was a huge part of my childhood. But now I know I don't like these kind of games. Like I don't go out and try to find these.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're pretty. The Tamagotchis, like the stuff from that era is so basic anyway. It's like you kind of would lose interest after. I mean, I don't even know if it's enough to ever hold your interest anymore, you know?
I don't think so. Also, you would find a way better virtual pet app on your phone now. And in fact, Tamagotchi makes those. So we'll talk about those later. But Tyler, you said you had a Nintendo one?
Yeah, I had one called Pokémon Pikachu, which was like a small, it wasn't Game Boy size, but it was like Game Boy shaped. It was a little bit bigger than like a traditional Tamagotchi, but it was a little Pikachu you could take care of and you didn't have to feed him or clean up after him or anything like that. But the main gimmick was that it had a little pedometer inside it and you would count your steps and you would get, so like trying to get kids active, which Nintendo still does today with a lot of their games, getting kids active to walk around with their Pikachu so that they could get watts in the game to like spend on mini games to like buy stuff for your Pikachu. I guess I remember there was like a slot machine game. And the idea was, that you would like walk around or be active to get these watts. But what kids would do is they just sit and shake it because it was very basic pedometer that didn't have any sort of actual step detection. It just shook. So you just sit and shake it. So that's what we did when we had those, is we would just sit around playing games and shaking our Pikachus until we got tired of it, I guess. I remember mine went through the washing machine, and that was kind of the end of that era. But it was fun. It was like cool because it was a Pokemon tie-in. It was a little bit more advanced than a Tamagotchi, and it looked like a little Game Boy. They did make a second one that had a color screen, and it could connect to your Pokemon Gold and Silver with the infrared port, like to your Game Boy Color, and you could do some stuff with that, I think.
I'm looking at the Pokemon Pikachu 2, like a photo of it now, and Pikachu is yellow.
Yeah.
Can confirm. Color screen.
Little basic color screen. Yeah, you could do the mystery gift mode, which gave you like a random item, I think, in Pokemon Gold and Silver, and you could do it like once a day or something, which was pretty cool. They might have had some linking features too between on the second one. I didn't have the second one, so I don't know. That must have come out around the time Pokemon Gold and Silver did. Oh yeah,
it would use the IR port on Game Boy Color, and you could interact with Pokemon Gold, Silver, and Crystal. I'm looking at just the Wikipedia page here, but yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because it had like, I remember linking my Game Boy with that IR for a different game. Was it Pokemon? It might have been Pokemon.
You couldn't trade, but you could do the mystery gift thing. Where you get random items. Yeah, I wouldn't do trading though. I remember being super bummed by that it wouldn't trade. It
seems like a missed opportunity.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I don't know what the data rate was on that, but
you'd have to have them next to each other for like an hour for it to trade.
Yeah, for it to trade, maybe. I don't know.
Do not move your Game Boys for 1 hour. Did you charge the battery? Leave it in there.
Yeah, swap the batteries out. Yeah, so that's the other one I had. I also had a Digimon one that was the same thing as a Pikachu kind of deal. It had some games. It had a step counter in it, and that was like one of the ways that you got currency was to get the step counter. It also had a linking port where you could attach them to another one, and you could do battles, which was cool. So that was like the thing that it had over the Pikachu one was you could do battles with your Digimon, and maybe you could do a bunch of different kinds of Digimon. Besides that, I never really got into Digimon as a kid, so like that was kind of the end of that.
Aren't they bringing Digimon back? I feel like there was some sort of recent trailer for a video game or something with Digimon.
Oh, maybe.
I remember watching Digimon, never really knowing what was going on because I was definitely a Pokemon kid more, but it always seemed interesting.
I always saw it as just a Pokemon knockoff. And I'm sure somebody out there's going to be like, actually, Digimon is older than Pokemon, which is fine. But it always seemed like it was like that other monster show that was sort of trying to do the same thing as Pokemon.
Yeah, they just took their Pokemon, made them digital. That's all they did.
Yeah. The Pokemon Pikachu also sort of evolved later into like a lot later when Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver came out. The first editions of those games came with a Pokewalker, which was like another thing. It was the same kind of deal as a Pokemon Pikachu. It had an infrared port on it. I think it was infrared. Yeah, it was infrared port, and it would communicate with the cartridge of Heart Gold and Soul Silver, which also had that infrared port built in to the cartridge itself because the DS didn't have one built in. And you could send Pokemon over to it, kind of take care of them, play some mini games. And I think if you walked around with it, it would train them up like if you had dropped them off at the daycare, which was
cool.
Kind of cool. And I think it had a better step detection in it. It wasn't just looking to be like, I don't think you could sit there and shake it because I must have tried that. And I don't think it worked. I think you had to actually walk around with it or trick it in some other way.
Can't cheese it here. No cheesing.
Yeah, I wonder what happened to mine because I had that because I bought that game the day it came out and I was really stoked on it. And I don't think it cost any more with the Pokewalker, but I think later editions of the game didn't come with it.
Makes me think about Pokemon Go when it came out and you could buy their like special pedometer attachment.
Yeah.
For extra money.
It was kind of like that. So I think the long-term evolution of stuff like Tamagotchis and these sorts of things, like the people that liked that stuff or like they were actually like super into it, I think they play stuff like Animal Crossing now or Stardew Valley, where it's like this sort of nurturing genre of games where they can take care of a whole city and like that's kind of like that's what Animal Crossing is. It's a Tamagotchi for a whole city, right?
Yeah, really, it is. That's a good way to put it. Man, if you're curious, by the way, about like what I wrote killed here, but that's not a good term. What ended the virtual pet fever of 1997 is just a new toy came along. It was Furby. Yeah. Everyone loved Furby. Holiday season, top spot. Virtual pets certainly didn't die by any means, though. I mean, Tamagotchi has made new Tamagotchi models up to present day.
Yeah.
In fact, Tamagotchi, to their credit, embraced cell phones and put the original Tamagotchi virtual pet on iOS and Android devices, and it's titled Tamagotchi Life, and Life is an acronym, LIFE. They also made numerous video games since 1997 for both handheld and home consoles. So I feel like Tamagotchi, instead of being like, oh no, cell phones, actually kind of embraced the cell phone.
Yeah,
which I think is good.
I bet they can sell tons of microtransactions. Give away the app and then sell.
Oh yeah, you could buy your little pet a little hat or something.
Yeah,
and you do that. Actually, it's really depressing because you buy your little pet alien a sweater, and then it would die, and then just like real life, you use that same sweater on your next pet. It's very depressing.
So sad.
Yeah, Giga Pets, I should say, did have a long break from. I think the last thing that came out with Giga Pets was like 2006. I could be wrong here. At least Giga Pets from the because Tiger Electronics got bought by Hasbro in 1998. So there is a new line of Giga Pets. They're made by Top Secret Toys, a company composed of many of the old members of RoccoW, that Chicago company I mentioned earlier, and they are re-releasing and remaking the original Giga Pets. The only difference is, in the name, they got rid of the space between Giga and Pets. That's really the only rebranding they've done.
No one will ever know.
They have no idea. So we're not going to go like too much more in depth beyond that. I think the virtual pet phase is pretty important in looking back at like something that burned really brightly so quick, and brought forth many important questions about like what's considered healthy for kids to play. Because this is kind of the same sort of deal as like the violence in the video games in the 90s as well. Except now it's like, can a kid be ready for this kind of game, that actually has like real loss to it. If you die, like your pet could die.
Hot take. I think this is a great way to teach kids responsibility. Yeah, your virtual pet dies. Who cares? It's not an actual problem, but it teaches the kid that there are consequences to their action. Like kids take care of actual real pets, right? Like some of that, like the turtle that was not able to go on that vacation. Like we don't think it's that weird to give a kid like a hamster or a fish, right? Like this is a lower stakes version of that. I think it's fine. I
had a hamster as a kid. His name was Eduardo.
Oh,
he's a good hamster. First day I got him, bit me so hard right through my finger. It was hilarious.
Nice.
Okay. Also, I should mention this. If like this whole episode, like the reason I did it is it was definitely nostalgia overload for me.
Mm-hmm.
If you are interested in virtual pets and you remember like, oh, I had a Tamagotchi when I was in school, in the 90s or whatever, when that was, you can get them today. They're actually fairly cheap on eBay if you're willing to get a used one. But as I said earlier, they're brand new Tamagotchis. The newest Tamagotchi is the Tamagotchi Pix. That's Pix, all caps. It retails for like $40 to $50. I think the site I saw it on was $42, but it has a color screen. Very fancy. Also, with Star Wars Day just happening 4 days ago, as of recording this, they have a brand new R2-D2 Tamagotchi that looks a lot like the old school Tamagotchis with the 3 buttons and the very simple screen. So if you wanted to get a newer version of a nostalgic thing, I would recommend that R2-D2 Tamagotchi.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So with that, though, that's all we're going to cover with the Tamagotchis today. Tyler, what you been playing?
Just Destiny, really. I'm still kind of on a little bit of break from games. I've been spending most of my free time watching Star Trek stuff these days. And so we just finished watching the finale of Picard, which I really enjoyed.
So good.
Yeah, I love that show. I know not everybody loves it. And I'm excited to start watching the new Star Trek, Strange New Worlds. That came out this week, the first episode, so I'm going to check that out. I really want to catch up on Star Trek Discovery also. So I've been still taking a little bit of a break from games, but I am going to be traveling this weekend. I have a very, very long flight ahead of me, so I'll probably play some more Pokemon Legends on that flight on my Switch.
Nice. That's the way to do it. So, I have been obsessing over Tunic. I can't stop playing it.
I need to play more Tunic too.
I love Tunic. I've beaten the first 3 bosses, and I am at the librarian boss is who it is. If people
you're way ahead of me now.
Yeah, it's really hard.
Yeah.
I struggled very hard against the second boss. How far are you in the game?
I haven't touched it since we last talked. I think I just got the shield, and I've
so you're getting close to the second boss then after you get the shield. Okay. Like you got an area to go, and then you're gonna get to the second boss. I struggled on this second boss for so long that it made the third boss feel not that bad at all, which was nice. But yeah, this fourth boss is a whole new thing where I just got to learn. And I also didn't know you can upgrade your fox, and I didn't know how to do that. And once I knew how to do that, I've been like upgrading him like crazy because I have all the items. I just didn't do it. So now I'm been farming gold little coins to go upgrade and make offerings to the thing to upgrade my fox. So he's ripped,
Yep. Yep. Just absolutely jacked.
Yeah, this swole fox running around killing things with a sword and a shield. I love the game, though. It's so cute. I love the instruction booklet. I love everything about it. And it's the one game that I'm like, oh, this might be like my own personal game of the year at this point.
Yeah.
Based on like the feelings it's making me feel. And
the music is so good.
The music is great. I want to buy the soundtrack. The music is great. Like, I actually had a problem with my Xbox Game Pass yesterday where it claimed I didn't have a subscription and it wouldn't let me play Tunic. And I had to hard reset my Xbox. But I got mad, legitimately mad that I couldn't play Tunic.
I think there was an issue this past week with a lot of people being unable to play the games that they owned on Xbox. I think there was an outage or something.
There was a server outage. I found out after I did the reset, which was fun. So, but it's just a good game. I'm playing that. I've been playing Destiny with you. I'm playing a little bit of Valorant, trying to get sweaty at that, even though I'm terrible. And then, I haven't really touched a lot of Wild Rift this week, but yeah, it's fun. It's been good. I just love Tunic so much. If you like Tunic, you should let me know because I just want to talk about it with somebody. I'm a big fan of that game. And Tyler's not far enough, and I don't want to spoil it for him. So,
Thanks.
yeah, you're welcome. Well, we have 2 emails to read. Would you like me to read this first email? Oh, by the way, both these emails came from the website. No big deal. The contact form works. Watch out. Here I am. Watch out now. This first email is from Anarch21. Codex and Fatherhood is the subject line. Hey guys, full disclosure, I work for the post office delivering the mail, so I listen to a lot of podcasts and discovered yours and instantly fell in love with it. It's just listening to 2 friends talk about video games. It's great. I have an 8-year-old autistic son, like me, who is fascinated by video games and everything about them. Obsessions like this are often called, quote, narrow interests in regards to autistic people. Currently, he's obsessed with platformers, Mario, Kirby, Crash Bandicoot, etc. He's plowed through the majority of Mario. He loved Mario plus Rabbids and recently gave Banjo a try, Tyler.
Nice.
Listening to your show encouraged me to introduce him to some retro games, and he was instantly hooked to games he never would have heard of on his own. I'm grateful to you guys because it's become something that he and I do and discuss together. Thank you from the bottom of a gamer dad's heart. Ideas for shows: Dead Space, Torchlight, the Mana series, Suikoden. Also, in regards to your superhero games, one that I loved but doesn't get a lot of love is Captain America for Xbox 360. It was fun, added some story to the first Avenger movie, and I understand it's somewhat notorious for its easy achievements.
Okay.
You know I love me some easy achievements. On regards to your scary games episode, I think that's where you talked about my favorite jump scares. One of my favorites, if it qualifies, is the first section of Dead Space 2. You basically have to run from a horde of aliens while you're in a straitjacket, so you have no ability to fight back. Thanks again, Anarch21. That's a great email. That's so nice to say. I'm glad that listening to us gave you some ideas of games to play with your son. That's awesome.
That's awesome, yeah.
Makes me feel so happy. Oh, the next email is going to have a tonal shift, I think. What do you think, Tyler?
Yeah, I think so.
Do you want me to read it?
Yes.
All right. This is from Sir Jonathan Remus Esquire. How y'all are so sexy is the subject line. To whom it may concern, you are making the rest of us look bad. Would appreciate it if you would dial back the awesome. Why my wife now thinks I, quote, don't measure up. Thanks much forever yours, Jonathan. That's just the end of the email. Thanks, Jonathan. Very big shift from the first to this email. I didn't even think about it. If you want to send us an email, you can go to codexhistorypodcast@gmail.com. That's our address. You don't go to it. You type it in. I'm sorry.
To your
email.
It's
been a long Sunday. To your email. You can also go to codexpodcast.net, though, and there you can go and go to the contact form and send us an email that way. That works pretty well. Also, we're on Twitter. I'm at Mecoletta, MECOLETTA. Tyler's at Sneaker Elf, ELPH. Don't want to mix us up, okay? And then you can join our Discord either by seeing the pinned tweet at the top of my Twitter profile, or you can just send us an email and I'll send you a link to the Discord. And yeah, that's it for the day, I think. We did it.
Awesome. Great job.
And again, thank you. We're kind of getting up to, we're going to wait until episode 200, I think, before we make a decision on what the next thing we're going to do is. But for now, we're just going to have these little fun little episodes, I think.
Yeah.
Tyler, do you want to say bye to everybody before we go?
Bye, everybody.